Happy December, everybody. Welcome to Lean In New York City's network live interview series, Leaning Into the Future of Work, hosted by your New York City network leader, Debra Albert. Today, Debra will be speaking with the marvelous Jodi Anderson, Business Owners Coach. I'm Michelle Liu, and I'll be moderating today's broadcast for your questions and comments. As usual, a few housekeeping items. Let us know where you're tuning in from. As we close out 2022, what are some goals that come to mind for 2023? How would you like to get ahead? Where do you see yourself in 2023? Let us know by posting it in the comments. If you like what you heard today, let us know. Tap that like button, click that heart emoji, and comment with your reaction. Now, without further ado, here's Debra.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I think we're going to have a really interesting chat today with Jodi Anderson. But first, I would like to read you a few statistics about facts about negotiation and the gender divide. Michelle, would you put up the slide? It's a very boring slide, everybody, and I can say that because I'm the one that did it. But I think that the data is really important to drive home the message of how important it is for women especially to negotiate. So look at this. Men initiate negotiations about 4 times more often than women. 20% of adult women say they never negotiate because they feel a great deal of apprehension, and that was coming from a bunch of verbatims on the surveys. When asked to pick metaphors for the process of negotiation, men picked winning a ball game and a wrestling match, and women picked going to the dentist. One study calculated, and the next two are really important, calculated that women who consistently negotiate for salary earn at least $1 million more during their careers than women who don't negotiate. And women own about 40% of all businesses in the US, but receive only 2.3% of all the available equity capital needed for growth. Male-owned companies receive the other 97.7%. I don't know about you, but I think that those statistics really make a good case for why we're here today. Anyway, we are here with Jodi Anderson. She is a digital marketing expert and founder of 2 companies, Badass Marketing Moms and Yes You Can Events. She's on a mission to move women forward faster. Her businesses support women in companies and entrepreneurs with high-performance marketing strategies and consulting services. Prior to founding her own company, Jodi spent more than 20 years working for startups and Fortune 100 companies alike as an employee and as a hiring manager. Her negotiation and influential communication skills had an impact not only on her own salary as an employee, but as an effective leader, developing teams, managing multi-million-dollar budgets, negotiating contracts, establishing partnerships, and influencing departmental decisions within large organizations. So she knows what she's talking about. Let's bring Jodi on.
Hello, Debra.
Hello, hello. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here too. I think now is a really important time to be talking about this, especially with, year-end bonuses or people leaving their work and looking for new jobs, want to have a change in the new year. So I think it's a pretty important topic. Let's just talk about a few definitions if we can, because what is negotiation? I mean, it's not arguing, right? Because that's not going to get you anywhere. How would you define it when you're doing it well?
When you're doing it well. So I think, before negotiation, we tend to have this like negotiating instantly puts one side against the other. It doesn't have to be that way. And I would say most of the time, women specifically never ask. They don't even get to the point of negotiating back and forth with someone to come to a common ground. They never ask the question to begin with. And this is one of the biggest problems. So like the statistics that you mentioned, of more than 20 people I've hired, not a single woman ever came back with a counter offer. ever. And I wanted them to. As a hiring manager, I could go back to HR and ask for more, but I also have to give what HR gives me as the initial offer. And I was never
Right.
able to go back because they didn't ask. The money was there, but they didn't ask. So I think asking is the first thing, but negotiating, when you actually ask the question and someone has a difference of opinion, then, it's a dance that you can get into. It doesn't have to be confrontational at all.
Right.
It's all about, back to Stephen Covey, like you can find a win-win solution to anything. And that's how every negotiation should end. Everyone should feel positive about the outcome.
That makes sense. So talk to me for a second about the differences in the ways that men and women even attempt to negotiate. I can tell you it's not true that every single woman doesn't.
Yes.
Because
no.
So at least there's one person. But in general, how are they doing it differently?
Yeah, and I think that was the most surprising thing for me, because from the time I had my very first professional job out of college, I negotiated my very first job, which was only like $20,000, right? Up to 30 something. And that was in, the mid 90s. And I negotiated every single job I had. I always came back with a counteroffer. And so I was so shocked when roles were flipped and I started becoming the hiring manager, that men, I'd say in my experience, 80% of the time came back with some sort of a counteroffer. Women never did. And I was just shocked and surprised. And these were very confident people. I was hiring for, substantial positions. So whether it was entry level, mid or high, they just weren't coming back with that. And it does a lot for the hiring manager too. They want that, it gives them more confidence in you. And when I was hired in my very first position, I think maybe that's what gave me the courage to negotiate and continue to do it after that first time out of college, because the owners of the company and my direct boss that I was hired to work with came up to me and they're like, "Oh my gosh, girl, we're so proud of you. That was awesome. And we're so excited for you to negotiate for us, with our vendors and with our partners. And we trust you so much more now." And I was 22, but they're like,
wow,
the way you weren't rude about it.
The way you
weren't
handled yourself.
Yeah. Just the way you handled yourself. It was very professional. It was thank you so much. You acknowledge, and then, you come back and you have a different opinion and you share it and you share some reasons why. And it starts the dialogue, and then they would go back and then we'd have to wait. My mom was like, "Just accept the offer, just accept the offer." And my dad was like, "Yeah, you go." But yeah, I think women just kind of get in that place. I think even applying for jobs, internal candidates.
Oh yeah.
I would approach with "How come you're not applying for this job?" "Well, I feel like I'm not quite ready. I can't quite do this part or that part." Where guys are like, "I want that job. I know I can learn that stuff. I'm applying." And they act as if they can already do it, or they'll learn it no problem. Women who actually have, in the cases I saw, my personal experience, had more experience, knew how to do at least 70% of the job already, but we're still fearful that, well, if I'm not going to be the best, I'm not quite sure if I'm going to get it. I don't even want to try. I'm not ready yet. And it just held people back so much. And it was so
There's a
frustrating.
lot of data out there that I've seen also about, I think women in general, if they don't have, men will apply if they have just 50 or 60% of what the job description asks for. And women, right. And women has to be over 95%. I've seen data on that. It's kind of crazy. I mean, we are selling ourselves short. That's really the reality, right?
Yes. And I've seen it both. You mentioned startup funding and things too. I've seen it in the business world of women who've started their own businesses. A lot of them don't even recognize or acknowledge that they've started a business. This is not just a hobby. You have a business, where they think it's just a thing I do. It's no, you've created a business. You can treat it as such. But women, I think in corporate and in entrepreneurship, we go into our little closet and we work on our things. We make it all perfect and we have to be totally comfortable. And then we go, "Look what I did." And guys are like, "Hey, I have this idea. Isn't it amazing? I'm amazing. Let's go do this thing. Oh my gosh, I did this thing. We're going to be doing this thing. This is the company I have." Right now it's just you and a business plan you put together. Whereas a woman will work on it for 3 years and never tell anyone, until she's reached a certain point in her mind that equals success. But if we can come out of that, both professionally, whether you're inside of a, corporate type workplace or you have your own business, when we can collaborate, when we can share more, we can learn faster and we can grow faster and move forward.
That makes so much sense. Why do you think that is? I mean, why are we so wired, we women in general, so wired to hold ourselves back, to not have, I'll say, the confidence to ask for more money or that promotion, etc.? What do you think that is?
I'm not sure. And I'm not sure I'm the right person to ask, just because I guess I've always, from a professional perspective, I've always had that in me to ask and to push. And in my mind, it was, if somebody's doing it, it never even occurred to me, male or female. If someone's done it, I can do it too. And then once I got into my businesses, I even let that part go. I don't need to see someone else has done it to know that I can do it. If I want to do it, I will. So there was even a big leap in that, in my own mindset. But I can compare, maybe like when I was younger, there were so many things I didn't get to do because I never asked. And it was my own parents. And I internalized so many things. And maybe that's, I went through therapy at a very young age. When I was, like 19, I was in therapy, and it was like, well, did you, I didn't get to do this. I didn't get to do that. My sister got to do all the things, even though she was younger than me. She asked. I never did. She asked to go to prom as a sophomore. Like, I never did. Like, these aren't work things, but it's the same thing of, like, in my mind, I thought of all the reasons why, if I was my own parent, why would I say no to whatever it was that I was asking to do or asking for money to have? And if I talked myself out of it, I never even asked my parents to give them the chance to say no. Right. And then my sisters, both of them, come along, and they got to do all the things. My parents said yes to almost everything that I never even asked for, because I talked myself out of it first. And so I think I recognized that at a younger age. And then going into other things, I was like, it can't hurt. All they can say is no.
That's right. And then I say that to all. Sorry, go on.
Yeah. And then you get to decide if they say no or where you go next.
That's absolutely right. I have led many sales and marketing teams. And I remember constantly saying to the people on the sales team, just ask for the business, ask for the order. The worst thing that'll happen is the same thing that'll happen if you don't bother asking. So at least you have a 50-50 chance of getting that which you want. Right. So I'm kind of with you on that. I've always been someone, I always ask for everything I want. I went into a store once in San Francisco, literally. I was probably in my early 20s, and there was a dress there that I loved, and it was really, really expensive. So I asked the manager, and I said, or rather I asked the person who was working in the store, are you the manager by any chance? And she said, no. And I said, well, if you don't like your manager, maybe, could I steal this dress? I was only kidding, but that's asking maybe a little too far, like wanting to do something illegal, but in any event.
Yeah.
So go back, take a step back again for a moment, talking about men, because a lot of women say that they don't feel heard. They don't feel heard in the boardroom. They don't feel heard in whatever rank and file inside of a company, teams, and even at home. So do you have specific tips for women who are feeling that way and how they can influence a decision and negotiate with men?
Yeah, I think especially as you start to, move into those middle management roles and even, higher into like director type roles, you're going to be sitting at traditional board tables or Zoom rooms. It's a little bit different, right? And I'd say it's dealing with men, but also other women that have a very masculine energy as well, of whoever's in there and they feel they're in a leadership position, or other people who have kind of staked their claim. Sometimes it's hard to feel like you are being heard or taken seriously in the conversation. So at the end of the day, I always like to approach it of, okay, how can I align myself with these people, have something in common with them? Get to know them on a personal level. Like there's networking, there's things like old school stuff. You think of even like good old boys clubs, like people who do business together, do things together. They like the same things. They talk about the same things. So one, finding common ground outside makes everything that happens inside that meeting room a lot easier. But if you're already there and you're having those conversations, again, don't be afraid to take a seat at the table. If there is, unless seats are assigned, don't grab a seat next to the window along the wall. Grab a seat at the table. And I'm not kidding. Like, you would be shocked. People always like, oh, I don't want to sit there. I don't want to sit there. Like, sit at the table. Maybe leave the head spot for whoever's organized the meeting, but sit at the table. The other thing too is you can, when you're sharing your ideas, when you speak up and you're answering someone's question or they're saying, hey, what about this? And you have an opinion, instead of just jumping in and stating your opinion, which almost negates what they've said, repeat what they've said. Like, oh my gosh, that's such a great point, or that's such a great thing to consider about X, Y, and Z. And so using and statements or using what if statements, because you're not, so instead of saying yes, that, but, and then saying what you want, you've just disregarded everything about them. They feel like you're speaking down or making them look bad. So everybody wants to feel that they are seen and heard and involved. So,
for sure.
So acknowledge that you see and hear what that person just said, or the person running the meeting, maybe even before them, if they're going around and people are sharing. So acknowledgement, say, and if we did this or approached it this way, then maybe, hypotheticals are a great way to share information. I'd say as you get higher in your roles, you can let go of that because that's pretty soft language. So it depends on your role. You need to know who you're in the room with, because there are some rooms that I went in and I would, to give myself confidence, I would wear boots. I had my suit. Like, I had my warrior uniform on just to psych myself up going in, because I was the only woman in a room of 20 men. There were all VPs and presidents of sales. And I was the marketing person coming in. Like, so when I'm in there, I don't say, yeah, maybe if we did this, what if we did that? Like, I was like, we have to do this. We need to do that. Like, if you don't take yourself seriously, they aren't going to either. But if you're in, so again, read the room, and it depends on what your role is, why you're there. But say you're a contributor on a team and there's people who are, higher than you as well, wanting your opinion. If you're, instead of just sitting there saying nothing, you can, acknowledge what they've said. So, yes, Deborah, oh my gosh, if we upped it by 15%, that could, have XYZ result. And, or you say, even, or if we approached it this way, we could see a 20% return instead, which we've documented with X, Y, and Z. Or another idea for this, campaign, if we incorporate, that's amazing. And if we paired it with these creatives over here and had this storyline, then it might build out and create more of a fuller picture. So it's like, you're going to get their attention by restating what it was they said to begin with, because then they're actually tuning in because they want to correct what you're saying that's not right about what they said. Everybody's thinking about themselves.
Right.
So you'll get their attention because they're like, oh yeah, she heard me. Now they're prepared because they're listening to hear what it is that you've said.
That is really good advice.
So it worked well for me.
It makes a lot of sense. I think that is a really good tip. It reminds me of improv classes, which I had done for a hobby. They're always saying, say yes and. Don't ever say but. As you said, it negates what was said before you come out with your opinion. Okay, pretty cool. Are there any other, or is there any other kind of specific language that you think works well when you're in a negotiation?
I think as much as possible, and this just takes practice, I really think, to build your confidence. But and I think some people have talked about this before, but if you haven't heard it, I mean, it's amazing. Take time before the meeting to prepare yourself. Who are you walking into that meeting? Who do you need to be? So don't just walk in to do the job you're hired to do. Like, who do you want to be? What are you aspiring to be? And what kind of influence do you want to have in that room? Imagine, what does that person look like? What do they feel like? How do they talk? Like, what's the confidence level? And like, I would go to the restroom, or I would have a quiet moment at my desk, and I would visualize myself walking into this meeting. Now, not every meeting, but like the big meetings, right? That's where it really matters. going in. So I would close my eyes. It's almost like, and you, I mean, I think like there was an episode of Grey's Anatomy, like warrior pose, like before surgery. It really does, like, take some deep breaths, collect yourself. And for me, so I had like this persona that I would like envision myself as. I didn't have a name for it. Some people do. But I definitely had like, power woman Jodi, like in every like, women-led movie you've seen where she walks in with her suit and she's this and she's that, and she's taking the room. Like that's who I embraced when I was going into the meetings. Like I visualized that we all have different versions of ourselves. I have the version of myself that hangs out on the couch in my fuzzy socks, but I also have the version of myself that's in my kick-ass boots and my pantsuit because I'm going in there and I'm getting the job done. Like, so there are things that you can do to superficially as well as internally prepare yourself to be in there and to be in it and like in the zone. Because if you don't have confidence in what you're saying, nobody else will.
Yeah. I mean, that's, I think, a good case. There's good reason for having people who are body language experts, because they do say, do the power woman. You can't see me, but I've got my hands on my both sides of my hips. And people who talk about mindset. And there's so many coaches out there that talk about mindset and visualizing, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, it seems to be, a way for people to prep themselves. I guess men too.
Yes, men too.
Prep
Absolutely.
themselves for getting the outcome they want. But let me ask you, what if you are someone who isn't interested in being the boss, becoming the manager, and really likes taking, I don't want to say taking orders, but executing on someone else's strategy or someone else's plans.
There's visionaries and there's doers, and people enjoy what they are, and they're very good at it.
Right.
Yeah.
So in what case, if there are doers out there, good word, thank you for that. I couldn't quite come up with it. What do they need to do? Do they need to negotiate? Do they need to wield influence in some way?
Absolutely. I think everyone at every level should have a core understanding of how to, it's back to, like, we're talking about influence, but essentially the core of it is communication. And so it doesn't matter if you're, the receptionist or if you're the VP of sales. Like, you need to communicate effectively because that's what's best for everyone in the company. There are valuable things that at every level of a company that the company is relying on you to be the expert at. You need to be able to communicate your ideas and your thoughts on how to improve things and make things better at any stage. And, so you may think, oh, my voice doesn't matter, or I haven't reached that point yet, or I don't even want to be at that point yet. Maybe you're an introvert naturally. And I'm kind of like an ambivert. I'm like a little bit of both. But it's really, your managers are relying on you. They're counting on, they want you to be that person. Now, you don't have to be the person that's the know-it-all that always has something to say. Nobody likes that person either. But when it matters, let your voice be heard. There's so much you can contribute to a company that no one else knows but you. So I think it's important, again, to understand that, and there are so many times where we ask for people's opinions and no one answers.
So yeah, that seems to be very prevalent when there's the bosses in the room, especially.
Yeah. And then there's like, I come from the tech space. So part of it works sometimes. And part of it was just like you're just saying that of like, hey, we want all the ideas. There are no dumb ideas. We want to come up with new things. We want to try them and we want to fail fast. The faster we fail, the faster we grow. And in some companies, that's doublespeak. In other companies, they're actually true to that. And they want to see that. There's some companies that I've worked for that say one of the KPIs that you have for your group is that your group has to fail at something at least 10 times this year.
KPI, key performance indicator.
Yes.
Just in case
so
people aren't familiar with KPIs.
Yeah. Your goal for your department or your group was that you had to come up with probably 20 ideas and you had to fail at least 10 of them to get your bonus. Like
and so it was like, real?
Yeah, like we're serious about wanting you to be creative and innovative. And unless we give you some sort of incentive to make you try things and that won't, not everything's going to work. Of 20 things you try, maybe 2 work. And those 2 things are going to catapult the company forward. So it really, it depends. You have to judge your management team and what the culture is for the company that you work for. But again, the company can only go so far without your input.
Yeah.
So being comfortable to speak up, if it's not in the form of a meeting, maybe it's in a one-on-one with your direct manager. Maybe it's sending ideas, like when you have weekly check-ins with them. Maybe there's something in your quarterly review process that you have with them of, here's, you're reviewing like what your job is and here's things. And then come with one or two new ideas of, here's all the things I did this quarter. We're setting you've set my goals a lot of times for me for next quarter. Yeah. Here are two things I'd really love to work on that I think might help. Or here's two ideas that I had. Like, come with ideas. Don't wait to be asked. Don't sit back. Mm-hmm. So key one of negotiation, ask. Number two, for influence, don't wait to be asked. Come up proactively with ideas. If you're part of a solid organization with a good management team, they'll probably have something in there that's asking for your feedback. But not all companies are like that. So if you're not part of one of those, then act as if you've been asked and submit 2 new ideas every quarter for something that you think, a problem you think could be solved, a new idea that maybe they should try. Businesses love that. Managers love the initiative. And you don't have to be that frontline person to do it.
Yeah. I would guess that is one of the ways that you can actually build / grow your influence, even if you're not in a stage of negotiation. Yes. Let's talk a little bit more about influence. I get that the two can come very much hand in hand, but let's talk about it sort of separately.
Do you have a specific question around influence or? There's so many directions you could go.
This is true. Other examples. Let's talk about some other examples of how you could build influence in your company or externally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, and again, they kind of go hand in hand. But the influence. So when you're working in a company, they love to see that you can come up with an idea and follow it through. Like that's a form of influence. If you have the capacity to share an idea and convince other people that it's worthwhile and have people come along with you to complete a project, like we call it getting buy-in. That's influence. Like you are coming, you have the vision for an idea and then you develop a concrete plan and you're getting people to come along the way. So that's one form of influence. Another is through the relationships that you build. Like, are you the person people are always coming to and asking questions? Like, does everyone oh, I don't know this. Oh, ask Jodi. So for me, it was everybody had a tech question with the marketing platforms, like marketing automation platform. How do I get these leads in? Or this email isn't working. Jodi, what do I do? Like, Jodi, what do I do? So I had a form of influence because I built relationships of trust where I was always helping kind of other people. But then the other part of that was like, oh, Jodi's the go-to person when it comes to marketing systems. Like she's always got an idea. Like if there's a problem, she solves it. If someone's having trouble, she helps them. And that's a form of influence, like being a support system without it taking away too much from your job, because I think women fall into that bucket too, where they're everyone's helpers and they never get to be anyone's leader. But it's a great way to get your foot in the door. I can't tell you how many times jobs that I've received, promotions I've had, because I'm volunteering my time. And it always leads to something else, because by volunteering my time, someone's impressed that I even took the time or cared enough to help. And then they're introducing me to someone else and someone else and someone else. So it really helps open doors by being that person that isn't the one that does everything for everybody. Like, don't be that person, but strategically, help someone out from time to time. If you see someone needs something or someone has a question, like be that person, be an expert in an area, be the go-to person. The other way to have influence, again, it kind of comes down to relationships again. So I was in charge of doing things with vendors, and we would set up and negotiate contracts with them and get better percentages or better turnaround times or different invoicing timelines. Like all those things add up to things that a company will appreciate because you're showing value. And if you show them these little things, then those little things lead to bigger things, to where all of a sudden I was then managing a $5 million budget for an entire department, because I was handling things on a smaller level. And it's like, oh, well, Jodi did this. Like, I'm sure she can do that. So showing your expertise So that's an influence related kind of to your expertise. If you're trying to influence decisions, like say there's 3 options and you really want one to happen, and it's between kind of like you and someone else, and you have to decide going in. And I think, we shared this before, like, and you completely disagree with what the other person is saying. You're just like, this is in your mind, this is the worst idea ever. Oh my gosh.
Right.
So you can kind of go back in and really, so the first thing is recognizing, any influential conversation that you're having, understand where so seek first to understand, figure out where the other person's coming from. So ask them why. Like, okay, so I'm hearing that, and I see from your plan, you have this 3-step approach and it's going to do X, Y, and Z. Tell me, why I would love to understand why you took this approach, or why does this matter so much to you? Like, and if you ask why 5 times, you'll usually get to the core of why it matters to someone. And the example I like to use is my son. He was just like, I don't want to go to school. I was like, oh, okay, you're 5. Of course you don't want to go to school. Like, no, we're going to school. But he normally doesn't complain about it. So I was like, and it was like the 3rd day in the row. He's like, I really don't want to go. And I was like, and I'm like, Mom, like, offering up ideas, making assumptions. Did something happen? Did the teacher say something? Like, what's, is there someone being mean to you? Like, what's going on? No, I just don't want to go. Well, why? Because I already know everything. Oh, wow. You know everything.
Right.
Well, what is it you know? And then he's like, I know the animals, I know the things, I know that. He listed off the things. Like, I already know all of those things. Okay. So why do you think it, why don't you want to learn more things? Well, because I keep talking about the same thing. Like, so I asked like 3 times, why? Well, I find out they've just been covering the same things. They're refreshing in class. They're not teaching new things. They're doing a refresh week. And I was like, oh, okay. So once I understood why he didn't want to go to school, there was actually a specific reason. Then I could address, okay, so that's a really, again, acknowledging that's a really good point. I know if I was going to school and they kept saying the same things, I'd probably be kind of bored and not want to go.
Right.
But, however, like, what if you went to school and we asked the teacher to give you some extra assignments, and you could be like a speed test and get through all the other stuff to see how fast you could do it. And then you could also do these extra things to learn more. Because if you didn't go to school before, you would have never known the things you already know. It was like, oh, so I could still learn new things? Absolutely. I'll tell your teacher to give you extra work. Okay. And as simple as it sounds, that same thing works in a meeting. Like, I had an employee, and sometimes it's managing down, right? I had an employee who didn't want to run reports for another department that we were supporting. It's like, we really got to get these reports done. This is pointless. They're just asking. I'm just doing work for nothing. I don't need to do this. And getting like kind of red and huffy about it. I was like, really? Well, do you know why they need these reports? Like, they obviously think it's important. You don't want to do it because you think it's a waste of time. Let's find out. And so we ask the person who needs the report, like, I'm just curious. We want to make sure these reports are giving you everything that you actually need. So can you explain how you're using these reports? And then we can make sure. I didn't go, hey, my guy doesn't want to do it.
Right.
I want to make sure we have all of the right information that will help you in whatever you're using these reports for. And they're like, oh my gosh, that would be great. We're making some financial decisions right now, and we're using this and this and this, and it's really going to help us make a decision for how much to invest in X, Y, and Z. And I was like, okay, thanks. So I go back to my team member. I was like, I spoke to the manager of the other department. They are using it for X, Y, and Z. And this is a really big deal for the company. Like, they need this information to make these decisions. Your role is really pivotal in that. And they're just like, oh my gosh, I'll do it right now. I get to do that. I'm helping with that.
So much sense. Right.
It's perspective. So yeah, I'm important. So everybody wants to be, seen, heard, and understood. And as soon as you can flip that script and understand what perspective someone else has or what paradigm they're coming from, you can recognize it in yours. And sometimes you'll change your own mind by understanding where they're coming from. Sometimes it shifts your perspective and you go, that is a great idea. Let's do that. Sometimes it's finding something in the middle. And sometimes it's your idea.
That actually reminds me of a personal story that I think is very exemplary of that. The whole concept of really understanding what the underlying reasons are, what the values, the core values that are causing that opinion to,
Yes.
bubble up to the surface. So my ex-husband used to leave the cabinet doors open in the kitchen, and sometimes drawers, and sometimes closet doors, wherever in the house. And it used to bug me. No real reason why. I know nothing bad's going to happen. So I said to him one day, I said, do me a favor. Can you tell me on a scale of 1 to 10, is it important for you to not close the cabinet doors and not close the closet doors? And he looked at me like I had 5 heads. And I said, no, humor me. Just tell me, scale of 1 to 10, how important is it for you to do those things?
Yeah.
And he again said, like, what is the purpose of this? I said, please, just do it.
Just humor me.
He said, yeah, humor me. He said, oh, I know. I said to him, look, I remember that you told me in your childhood, your parents used to argue a lot, right? And you used to hide under the bed. You also, maybe your mom used to slam the doors shut. And maybe the sound of a door slamming shut, or, if you close the cabinet and you don't do it softly, it might make a little bit of a bang. And I thought, well, maybe that's a trigger for you.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's the case, then I can understand it better. And maybe it won't bother me so much. And he said, no, that's not the case at all. It's like 0. I said, okay. So here's the deal. When I walk into the kitchen and I see the cabinet door open, I know that the dishes are not going to just walk off the shelves by themselves. I get it. And even if they did, okay, so I'll buy another dish. I mean, it's not that big a deal. But really, it's not going to happen. I know there's no real rational reason for me to get bugged by something like that. However, it bugs me. When I walk in and see that, it's like a 7. So on this particular behavior, can you do me a favor and really make an effort to not cause me to have a 7 if it's a 0 for you?
Yes.
And that's a win-win, because he certainly doesn't want to do something that he knows bugs me. If it turns out that we're both like 5 and 5, on any particular thing, that's a different kind of discussion.
Yes.
But I call that my cabinet story. And I can't tell you how many young couples who are getting married I told that to, because it's a great way to live with someone.
Yeah.
So
and I think,
it's important.
And with influence too, I think that's part of it, especially, and there's relationships at work, there's relationships at home, there's relationships with vendors, like you have relationships with your kids, and the principle is all the same. When you go into something that's potentially contentious, like where you have differing opinions, walk into it thinking, what am I trying to accomplish and get from this conversation? Am I looking to find a solution, or am I looking to win? If I'm looking to win, what is that going to do to the relationship? Is it just going to make me feel better in the moment? Am I going to damage something going forward? Like, what do you really want to come from this? And what are the longer term effects of that? So like when I go in, when my sister like goes into a discussion with her husband, it's like, okay, am I coming into this because I'm going to be right about everything and I want to win because I know my thing is da 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 da. Like, what purpose does that serve? If you're right, he acknowledges you're right, but it ruins the relationship. Are you going to be happy with that?
Right.
Or, and same thing with your boss. Like, there are so many times, right, where the people working for a team, they know better a lot of times, or from their perspective of what they know better than their boss. Their boss doesn't know. They're too far removed from the actual work, blah, blah, blah. We've all heard the stories. We've been there. However,
for sure,
when you go in, instead of being confrontational or being worried about being confrontational, like they may be, like, what are you actually trying to achieve through this conversation? What result do you want? Are you looking to be right? Are you looking to get your way? Or are you looking for a solution that's going to work for everybody and move the relationship and trust forward? And by altering that, it's going to save so many relationships in your life. With my son, it's the same thing, especially at 5, because they know everything. It's like when I go, it's like there's so many times I'm like, do it, like, because I told you so. Reporting back to my parents. I'm the parent. I set the rules. It's my house because I said so. Versus, which makes him feel bad, he doesn't feel acknowledged. He doesn't feel recognized. He doesn't feel heard. It's like, my opinion doesn't matter. I don't matter, because everything is egocentric as a kid. Let me tell you, you never lose that. People always make it about them, even as adults, which is why I love using kid examples, because we don't progress much psychologically from being a kid to an adult when it comes to our internal fears and insecurities. So, but if I go up to him, I'm like, Jackson, when you make puppy noises and you make all these little barking things, it's really frustrating for me. And it makes my heart go like this, and it makes this happen and that happen. And like, is that how you want mommy to feel? It's like, why do you want to do this? Why, I start going down the why scenario again.
Right.
And
and
then he tells me, I'm like, that's great. You can go outside and do that. You don't have to do it right here. And then we can both be happy. And also involving them. So this is kind of like a Montessori approach too. But again, it works with teams. Okay, here's the problem. You're doing this. It's bothering me. What solutions do you think? Like, what can we do creatively to find a solution for this? And again, it's a great way to get buy-in. It's a great way. You're influencing the conversation or the decision in a way that's going to work for you and everybody else in the room. So it's like,
makes so much sense.
You're saying this because we've asked you why, and we get to the root cause. I'm saying this, and here's my why. Like, here's the deep thing of like, it's not just because I'm trying to be mean. It's not because I don't want you to not have fun. It's because of X, Y, and Z. So what do you think we can do about that? And you'd be surprised. Again, you have to ask. You'd be surprised what kind of answers people come back with. I think Michelle says she has a question.
Oh, yeah? I did not see that. Okay, good. Let's get a question from the audience.
I do. And I realized I was muted. So the first question, it's kind of here's a three-parter, I guess you could say. So the first part this is from Elisa, I believe is how you pronounce her name. How do you build influence when your idea is falling flat time and time again, but you realize the positive impact given your expertise? Like, what are the core things that one has to do? And then Elisa mentions that she wants to hear more, especially as it relates to innovation. And if it helps to provide further context, if you could share a little bit more about communication strategies on influence, especially relating to new innovation, new ideas that others may not have been able to understand as it falls flat, but you have a core belief on that idea or product or project is a great one.
I love this question. So when I came into a new company, I was specifically brought in to build a new style of team. So they had been selling through, they've been doing enterprise and solution account-based selling, in the tech space. And they knew that as they've acquired some new platforms, they needed to have a faster sales approach, and that the approach they were using for these new product lines that they had acquired isn't going to work. And they didn't have anyone internally with expertise to help guide them through that process. So as I came in, here I am. I'm like, okay, great. They're hiring me. They called my team like the velocity team because it was a faster sales cycle. Some of it was going to be automated. It was all about building kind of like online customer journeys and what they now call some people call funnels, some people call customer journeys, all of these things, and using automation. And so instead of a 1 or 2 year sales cycle for these big deals, it was like instantaneous sales for SaaS models and other things. But this was totally new. So I thought I was hired to come in and do a job and build a team. And I already had all these structures and things that I knew would work because I came from another place where we were doing it already. And I was going to rebuild a new team for them. Well, all the existing people who had been there for 15 years weren't quite sold. So instead of coming in and just building the team, I had to have meetings with each product manager across the company. I had to have 10 different meetings with people who were probably twice the age, who'd been there for a long time and been in the industry forever. So it was a lot of, and my director was in the first meeting with me, and then the rest, he's like, Nick, you got this. Like, I don't need to be there with you. You just go. I'm like, okay. And I had all of my stats. Like, I did my market research and I showed them how competitive products had similar models and how they were acquiring market share. So 1, data is your friend. 2, depending on who you're speaking with. So understanding, some people process information logically. They're I call them analyzers. So some people love the data, love the stats. Some people are very visual. They want to see a chart. They want to see a growth model. They're very visual. And then they think, oh, like, how do you get them to buy into your vision? Understand, like, are they visual? Are they data driven? Are they emotional? Or are they competitive? They want to be the best at something. Those are honestly the easiest people to convince, because you can say, hey, I can give you an advantage over somebody you care about beating. Because it's more emotional. It's actually a little bit easier to convince people. But again, like, you're not trying to do a bait and switch. You're not really trying to convince. You're trying to influence a decision, especially like, that it's the right thing to do. So I think pulling together data, but how you present it to people. Some people want the PowerPoint charts and the data and the graph, and some of them are visual and need graphs. So, and usually you're going to be presenting to multiple people who have different learning styles. And
what do you do in that situation?
So
like
in that,
making a presentation to a group.
Yes. So I pull together the presentation, but I make sure that I have the data and the stats, but I also have them presented visually in a graph or a chart of some kind. I also tell a story. Like, I'm a marketer. I tell a story. I have lots of visuals that show a before and an after. Like this, I'm not saying, hey, I want to do this thing and here's my 20-point plan. And they're like, oh, snooze fest. That sounds like a lot of work. So it's the same, like when you're selling anything too, like you're in sales, right? Like when you're pitching a new idea, you are in sales. People don't care about the features and the functions and all of that in the beginning. You have to sell them on the transformation first. So what's in it for them once the transformation happens from the project you're proposing? So innovation. So for me, I was like, hey, I was brought in. It wasn't like I could be like, I was brought in to do this job and I'm doing it whether you want me to or not. That's not going to work. Here's all this data and why you're wrong. That wasn't going to work. Here's what could happen if we implement a system like this for your team. Here's how it's going to benefit your team. So your current sales, your current revenue model is, taking you to 15 million or $1 billion or whatever it was. And right now your current sales cycle is 12 months. But what if by implementing a new system, we could reduce that sales cycle time to 6 months? What if we could cut it in half and your team could double their sales? What if it didn't work as well as the model is predicting right now? What if only half of what I'm proposing works? And your team still grows by an extra 25%. Right now, your department's growing at 10%. We're totally here to help you. We want to partner with you on that. Like, I want to meet with your team. I want to do this. So letting them know that, like, you're not just going to go off and throw something at them and give their team, the other thing too, people don't want things dumped on their lap. Like, think about how do you let them know? So same thing with sales process. Like when we bring clients in, it's like, we're making this as easy as possible for you. We're doing all the heavy lifting. We're defining all these things. We have an easy onboarding process. We have, an easy form to just quick fill out. It'll take you 10 minutes or less. So whatever you can do that's going to save them time, resources, or make them more money. Those are the three things people, their time, their freedom, which is, their money. Time is freedom. Time, money, and resources are the three things you have to make anything work. And if you take one away, you're always left with, like, you always have to have 2 out of the 3, and whatever you're missing, you need more of the others. Right. And so managers think in that way.
So when you're innovating, if your ideas are hitting that sort of tripod, if you will, or 3-legged stool, chances are you're going to spread that influence and you're going to have the outcome that you want, and you'll be able to get your ideas heard and maybe actually taken action as well. Yeah.
And it can be a hard process. You have to speak up a lot and share a lot of information and answer the same questions over and over in 10 different ways. Like, it can be a process. Like the company that I was at before that, one person brought me in again to modernize with a marketing automation platform. Well, the rest of the leadership team wasn't necessarily like, we've got constant contact. We're emailing. we're emailing. We're doing that emailing thing. And I was like, okay. But if we bring in a true automation platform, which again, to Constant Contact's credit, this was 10 years ago or 15, whatever. We bring in something where we can actually segment lists and tag people, and based on what they've done, behaviorally based, have custom nurture sequences that go through and build this thing. And all of it is automated and we can have a unique buyer's journey and we can upsell and downsell based upon what they've done. And a lot of that was like over their head even. They're just like, what is that going to do? Okay. So, right. And, so that I was like, because they're like, what we're doing right now costs us $2,000 a year. You're wanting to bring in a system that's going to cost us $30,000. Why should we do that?
Right.
It's too much. And so I had to go through, okay, what are the at the end of the day, you want to do what's best for your customers and your user experience. Here's all the departments that can benefit from something like this. Here's how it's going to help streamline your business. You won't need all these extra employees when you have an automated system and yada, yada, yada. It's like we went through
yada, 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 right.
Yada, yada, yada. You can make better business decisions. But you try to keep it as non-technical as possible and really focus on what's in it for them, what's in it for their department. Right. How is it going to make them look to their boss? That's a huge one for people.
Yeah, for sure.
Understand what is their goal? What are their quarterly goals and objectives? And how are you going to support them in that?
Everything that you're talking about, the experiences that you're relaying that you've had, really all gel together, right? In the sense, without being specific about, software platforms.
Yeah.
Understand the other person's why. Acknowledge that you understand their why. State your opinion or idea or innovation. Have the data to back it up. Present the data in a way that visual learners versus number crunchers will like. And even what you said before about, trying to get to understand these people as people. Even before you're in a situation around the table, table, or in negotiation, really can help, because the what's in it for me kind of thing is very individual. So that all just makes total sense and gels as a way forward to be more influential and a better negotiator. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and the whole what's in it for me is key, and then how to deliver it back to them. Like if you can understand too, like in any relation, like in a new relationship, you find out like, oh my gosh, you go on a date and you're like, oh, they like this TV show, they like these movies, they like this kind of sports, or they don't, and they like this music. All of a sudden you're listening to all their favorite music. You have a lot to talk about, right? So it's similar in the work, like don't stalk people, but like get to know a little bit more about them and what they're interested in. And where it will help you is that when you are in those conversations. So I would walk into a room with someone in DC who's in charge of this whole thing. Like I'm flying from California to DC and meeting with people. And I know that the person who's in charge of that room is a huge Dallas Cowboys fan. Like he's just diehard. Everything is football. And he also likes boxing. He has this huge like boxing belt on his wall. So when I start giving examples of like why they want to buy into this process, so then I start to rely on like, okay, well, do you want to be this football player in 76, or do you want to be this person? And like I start to I come up with like analogies and like, again, storytelling is the most effective way to maintain someone's attention so that you can influence them. Don't just spew data at them. Like find ways to create stories, and people will remember things more clearly as well. So it's like, do you want to be that boxer that can come in and punch out 10 rounds or get knocked out in the first battle and then it's over? Or do you want to be able to continually sell over and over and over? Yeah.
There's a quick few words that actually I think sums that up. Know your audience.
Absolutely.
Right? Yeah. Hey, we don't have a whole lot of time left. So I want to just ask if you would talk for a moment about salary negotiations. As I said, it is the end of the year. People are going to talk about bonuses, promotions, getting new jobs. What would you have to say in terms of how one should approach negotiating salary or a raise?
Yes. So again, do your research. Go onto something like PayScale or another, pay ranking research site.
Glassdoor, would that be one?
I think Glassdoor might have something. Yeah, I'm not. It's been so long since I've been on it myself. But whenever I was going in, if there was an internal promotion or an outside job I was applying for, I would always go to. I personally went to PayScale. I know there's lots of them out there, and I would research for that type of position with the experience I have. What is the range? Where I live, all of those things, so that when HR comes back to me and makes an offer, I already know, is this within that? Or should it be higher? And then when I'm coming back to them, I'm like, so here's the thing. Even if you think it's a phenomenal offer, let's say, just random numbers. Let's say, you really wanted 125 and they come back with
$1,000 a year you're talking. Just in case someone's listening.
Yes. 125,000 a year. And you're like, oh my gosh, this is it. And they come back at 150 as you're off with your offer letter. And you're just like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. This is so great. You're like, yes, side of the dotted line, take now. Don't do it. Always ask for something. All they can say is no, even if you're thrilled about the offer. So hold on. Would you be seen as someone who's sort of, I don't know, not a bully, but would you be seen as someone who's ungrateful, let's say, if you ask for more? Are you talking specifically more money or something else?
So look at the total offer and see what's there. But I'm telling you, in every single situation I ever extended an offer to someone for, there was always more money. They know it's a negotiation. This is their first offer. You can come back and you can ask for something else. It doesn't have to be 175. It can be like, oh my gosh, that's such a great offer. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I was really hoping for 155. Is that something you think you can do? And you can even say, based on some research and other things that I've done, I was really thinking of 155. Is that something you can do? And even if they come back and say, no, we're really like on budget, and the hiring manager that's bringing you in wanted to make sure we gave you the top offer, like right out of the gate, like this is it. Like, awesome, great. Can we throw in a couple extra vacation days? Can we have more flex time? Also, always ask, when is the review cycle for the next, for raises? Would I be in that or excluded from that based on my hiring time frame? Are you going to have to wait a year and a half? Like, so sometimes, especially, I'd say this time of year, it's less likely, but if you're spring or summer, you may miss the cutoff, so that when they do reviews, so we had someone come on board once, like in April, and then we did our review cycles again in January. Oh, you haven't been here a year. You're not qualified. But it's 3 more months. And she had to wait a whole other year because the company only did it once a year. So I would ask those, which was ridiculous, I know, but it happens. And so I would definitely ask, like, okay, so, and is there a bonus structure? Is it prorated based on when you're hired in? Like, again, it's a contract and it's an offer. Like, understand the numbers. When are you up for, for another review? When, how are the bonuses structured and allocated? Is it based on when you were hired or just anyone who happens to be working there? All of those types of things are important. Look at the vacation time, remote working time. I know back before remote working was a thing, I was negotiating, one job was like 1 day a week, and the next job, I want 2 days a week. The next job, I want 3 days a week from home, until I was like 100% remote. And that was like 8 years ago. Like, cause that was important to me. I wanted that freedom to work from home. It worked better for me. And, so there's lots of things that you can do, vacation time or personal time off. And again, you're never, as a hiring manager, I'll tell you, like, I respect someone so much more. Like, understand what's important to you. Is it your time? Is it your money? Those are pretty much the two things in a contract. But also, it's like, if continuing education is important to you and they can't negotiate on salary, it's like, hey, I really like to make sure that I'm on top of continuing education stuff for my field, and I attend a national conference every year. Is there a way maybe the company could cover that? Now, I wouldn't go in with all of these things as your counteroffer, because then you would be that annoying person. But
and you don't want to be that person.
These are just a lot of ideas for, like, pick one that you could come back with. Like, this is amazing. Thank you so much. I always say thank you. This is amazing. I'm really honored. How I was hoping for, based on my research, I was thinking that. So those are all things that again, they've made an offer. Like, it is so hard to find, even if there's 80 people who applied for the position that you're applying for, that they're giving you an offer for, you're the one they're making it to, because the hiring manager likes you best. There's something about you.
For sure.
And they don't want to have to go to the next person.
Right. likability and fit with the culture, all of that,
Mhm.
all of that stuff that isn't data oriented
Yes.
actually makes a difference for sure.
And your power position
We
is just
are,
coming.
say again?
Your most powerful position in salary negotiations is when you first start a job with a new company. And then from there, it's a percentage increase, and it's always going to be lower. Like, you're not going to make big leaps once you're there,
Right.
usually internally, unless you move to a
Yeah.
different company. So like, this is your strongest position, knowing that everything else is incremental and you're kind of you have less control over those things. So do it
Got
now.
it. Hey, Jodi, we're out of time, and I know there's so much more in you that you want to get
Yes.
out. So I think it might be a great idea. We did not get to answer a lot of questions. So I'm going to ask anyone who's got questions, if you didn't get a chance to actually put them in the comments, please do email leaninnyc.com, info@leaninnyc.com. And I'll make sure we compile them and give them to Jodi, and hopefully Jodi will take a moment to answer them back.
Happy.
Anyway, thanks. That's great. I'm really happy that you shared all this good information, and I thank you for being here and for your time, and I thank the audience for your time, and I wish everyone a very happy holiday. We will see you next month, and that's it. Bye-bye, and have a good night.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.